E dando continuidade à nossa matéria sobre voz original, hoje trazemos entrevistas exclusivas com alguns dos melhores profissionais do mercado americano. A repórter especial da TV Guia do Ator, a atriz e profissional de voz original Garcia, foi até Los Angeles e conversou com Andrea Romano. Andrea ganhou 8 prêmios Emmy, o maior da televisão americana. Ela dirigiu os atores na criação das vozes de desenhos como Bob Esponja, Batman, Os Mistérios de Frajola e Piu Piu, só para citar alguns. Melissa também falou com a Karen Strassman, profissional de voz original há mais de 20 anos. Ela criou vozes para diversos animes, como Naruto, que também é exibido aqui no Brasil, e jogos como World of Warcraft, bastante conhecido entre os gamers. Deborah Richards, uma das mais renomadas profissionais de voz em Los Angeles, deu dicas de exercícios para a criação de vozes para personagens. E para completar, conversamos via internet com Bob Bergen, que entre milhares de personagens que já fez, destaca-se por ser a voz do Gaguinho, da turma do Pernalonga nos últimos 20 anos.
And you will be walking around the house talking like this. And my mother said you better do something with that.
Quem também entrou na conversa foi a atriz Katie Lee, que deu voz a Rufus, personagem do desenho Muppet Babies, sucesso dos anos 80.
I did Baby Rolf's voice on the Muppet Babies cartoon show for Jim Henson. Far out, I think that's cool.
Wow, that's cool. I just finished my Valentine for you guys.
You did?
Uh-huh. Listen.
Voice recording in animation in Los Angeles and most of the English-speaking territories is very early on in the process. It starts with a script, and then if there's time, that script will go to storyboard. Sometimes the storyboard happens after, but so from script it may go right to recording, casting and recording. And so when I direct from the script, telling the actors what the physical action is. I've usually given the script to the actors ahead of time so they can read the entire story. I send them what's called a shooting script, which has the stage directions as well as the dialogue. When we record, most actors work off of just the dialogue script. It doesn't have all the action. If I have a storyboard, like for a show like SpongeBob, they do have time to do a storyboard ahead of time. I direct from that, and then I can tell the actors even more specifically, you are running, you make one leap, and then you fall. So it's... and I can direct a little bit more clearly that way. Then after it's recorded, the tracks are recorded and edited, then it goes off, exposure sheets are created, which allows for the mouth flaps to stay open the right amount of time for every sound that the actor makes. It's sent usually overseas for animation, Japan, Korea. And then it takes a good 6, 8, 10 months to animate an episode. And then it comes back to us from overseas, and then we screen it, we look at it, and then we decide whether or not we want to go in and ADR, which stands for automatic dialogue replacement, which means we essentially either fix any dialogue. For example, there may be a scene where we thought, looking at the script or the storyboard, that we were just having a conversation like this. But when the animation comes back, they've put us at opposite sides of a room. So we have to re-record the dialogue much louder to make it make sense. Also, any of the action shows like a Batman or a Superman or a Justice League, there's all kinds of fighting stuff. We always do that to picture because it's much easier to get it right when it's, you know, pulling yourself up on a ladder. Because it could have been... and you don't know what to record. Initially, you wait till you get a picture. So it's a long process. So the actors typically, and I, typically work at the very beginning of the process and at the very end of the process.
The work of a voice actor, like any great actor, is to disappear in the role so that vocally nothing of me exists in the audio. I become the character that I'm supposed to be interpreting. I have been a voice actor, worked in radio and TV since I was 16, so I have 34 years in this business, and I teach voiceover and produce demos, and I still take classes. Any artist should never be satisfied with what they've accomplished and what they've learned and achieved. You should always want to get better. You should always want more. The greatest achievement for a character voice actor is to play different characters that are conversing with themselves. So they leave their voice, their qualities, their tone, everything is left at the doorstep, and they become this character. But for original animation, you are responsible for creating a voice, to look at the character, to look at the physical features of the character, and decide what it would sound like.
As far as the acting part, you have to have a good imagination, be spontaneous. You know, you can feel free to do whatever it takes to make the sound that they're looking for. You have to have good improv skills, because generally speaking, we don't see our scripts until we get to the studio. I would say about 80% of the time. A good voice actor has at least 5 voices, 5 different types of characters, because when I started under the Screen Actors Guild, they could pay you the same amount for up to 3 voices. So especially in cartoons, they would look for somebody who could give them 3 different characters, you know, so to fill in the cast. So say there were 15 parts, then you maybe get 5 actors to play all those 50 parts. So you have to be versatile. And to make a good voice actor from a non-studio point of view, I think you can't take things personally. You have to be able to just let go. You know, you audition all the time, and you can't desperately want a job. You just have to trust that eventually you're going to get work and pay your bills, because otherwise you'll make yourself crazy.
The word actor, you've got to be a really good actor. You've got to be able to take a script and not just give the buyer what they want, but put something a little bit extra into it. I always tell my students that a script is a skeleton. Your job is to give it a body. So you need to be able to bring those words to life. It's not about how you sound. It's about how you act. So the first thing I tell people is you got to be a good actor before you decide to be a good voice actor.
Well, dubbing, the character of the voice, the character itself has already been created by another artist, and you're simply replacing the language or fixing a word or two. It's copying, imitation, impersonation, which is an art unto itself. But original animation is creating.
Dubbing, you have the product that has already been created and the characters that have already been created, and you're trying to match your voice with the original voice. So, and the mouth is already moving, so you have to fit your voice into a mouth that's moving. So in original animation or in a video game where you're not matching anything to picture, you can go, hello, how are you? But if there's another rhythm with a mouth that you have to fit into, you have to match that rhythm. And if the character played it a certain way, bonjour, comment ça va? Then you have to match that interpretation with the language that you're doing. Whereas if you're doing an original video game or original animation and you're not doing it to picture, we call it in American voicing it to picture, and you're not voicing it to picture, then you can do it however you want. You can do, hello, how are you? You know, you can do, hello, how are you? You can do any interpretation you want to within the realms of what the director or what is appropriate for the character you're doing.
Voice actors bring the written word to life. And because we're so early on in the process, voice actors give the animators that which will be animated. It's a lot of freedom for voice actors because there's a lot of different things we can do with the original record. And then the animators will take that and decide, well, do we give it this kind of pose? Do we have the character be one of those characters that breathes a lot because they're always nervous? Or is it a very confident, secure. There's so many things we can do as actors to give the animator something to play with. And so voice actors are so very important, especially with original animation. When you're dubbing, you're locked into picture. You've already got a template of somebody else's performance. But when you're doing something, ideally in the native tongue, whether it's Brazilian Portuguese, whether it's French or Chinese, and there's a lot of these countries are now doing original animation, I think they all should use their native tongue. And then let America dub it into English, and let Mexico dub it into Spanish, or Spain dub it into Castilian Spanish, or whatever. But I think certainly if you want to create stories and do animation that is indigenous to the area, and I think there's tons of great Brazilian folklore and fairy tales and things that I would love to see made into animation. It's something I've been contemplating for a while. I think doing that in Portuguese is absolutely key.
You want to sound real. Your voice is really what informs the animation, what's going on. It also informs the animator. It gives them ideas how to animate. You have to act what's going on to make it real. Melissa can confirm this, I'm sure, when we're doing Totally Spies.
No, Clover, I meant, aren't I your best friend too?
Não, Clover, não é isso. Eu também não sou sua grande amiga.
We had a lot of fights. You can't do fight sounds without using your body and, like this kind of thing, and kicking and all that stuff, or hitting yourself in the face. That's why I don't wear jewelry, because it makes too much noise. So there's physicality to it, and that's really important, to use your body. If you want to sound like you're talking underwater, you can always go
like any acting, the technique is to be honest. The technique is to react. Whether you're working by yourself or with a full cast, you got to listen, and you've got to react to your scene partner. You don't just read your lines in a funny voice. So if you have the luxury of having the entire cast there, listen to your scene partner and react to them. I'm doing a show right now, the Looney Tunes show, where I actually do all my lines by myself. But I'm still reading the other characters' lines before delivering mine, because I am reacting in the scene. So it all goes back to acting. Acting is reacting, so you've got to pay close attention to not just the sound of your voice, but how your character is relating to the other scene partners.
An exercise I found very helpful is to pick up 5 or 6 household items and put them in front of you on a table and decide what they would sound like if they could talk. It's a coffee pot. You could go low, deep, and rich for coffee. Or you could go really spicy and really hectic because of all the caffeine. Yeah, my coffee pot. Yeah, it needs more coffee, more caffeine, more sugar, more sugar. So it's a great exercise to just challenge you to create voices for inanimate objects.
What is it, sweetheart? What's the matter?
He was here. Did he go like that? Rick was here.
No.
From what I could gather, because it's really hard to know who makes all these decisions, she was not very expressive. She wasn't that good an actress in that movie. And she would deliver her lines like this. Yeah. So her face kind of looked like this. And they wanted somebody to give more expression to her voice. Those of you who know who she is know she died as a child of cancer, so who knows? She may not have been feeling good when they did that movie. And that was a very, very tough job to do because, as you can imagine, somebody who's talking like this and isn't really giving you very much facial expression, to make the voice sound like it's coming out of that face. Right. So you gotta kind of, finesse it a little bit to try to improve on the performance without looking like it's dubbed.
Thank you very much. I may have a spot for you. Next, please.
I would record cartoons when I was a kid. I would have a tape recorder by the television set, and I basically figured out there was a formula to the character's stutter. Puberty helped because when my voice changed, I was able to do the voice. I wasn't really able to sound like the character when I was a kid, but I was able to basically dissect or figure out the formula of the stutter. And I remember when I first auditioned for Porky, which was back in 1990, the character, when Mel Blanc did it, was sped up electronically. And I asked at the audition, do you want me to sound like Mel Blanc did when he did it in real time, or are you going to speed up my voice? And they really weren't quite sure what I was talking about because they had never worked with how the character had evolved over the years, but I knew it, so I think that helped in my auditioning. And my Porky may or may not be sped up. It depends on the producer, but I can pretty much do them in real time. So I didn't create the character, but over the years, and it's now 22 years since I've been doing it, I think they're pretty comfortable and confident in my delivery of the character to not worry, gosh, does he sound like Mel Blanc? When I first got the character, we spent a good half hour every session with me listening to old recordings of Mel Blanc trying to match him, and that was tedious because every other cartoon he sounded a little bit different as the character evolved. So I finally said to them, let's pick a Porky that Mel Blanc did that you're happy with and stick with that, which was about 1953 to 1956. So we would only concentrate on those cartoons that were done in those years, and that's the Porky that I do.
This is Kerrigan. We've neutralized the Protoss, but there's a wave of Zerg advancing on this position. We need immediate evac.
Miss Suno, what have you done?
This is a character from a new show on Nicktoons that I'm doing called Monsuno. And so this is Jinja, my character. So they started by showing us the picture. And then we had to create the voice for this picture. So the first thing I did was go in there for the audition and propose voices. So the first kind of voice I did was kind of like this, and they said, that's too old. So then they said, you know, she's young, she's like an adolescent, and she's really feisty and dynamic. So I said, so maybe something like this, feisty and dynamic. And so we decided on the voice. We played with it. And we also, she's kind of a smart aleck. She's kind of tough. Like there's a character that she makes fun of. She's like, oh, Bren, you don't know what you're saying. So what happens is when I animate her and I bring life into her and bring movement, then the animators can feel that dynamic and they'll follow my voice. And it's really important to have the proper dynamic for the character because if somebody who's not playing the character just does the voice, so now I'm just being a human being that's reading Jinja's lines and saying, Charger, launch, or, yeah, right, Ben, that's right, Bren, then it's going to be a much slower animated, and and then when the voice actor comes and tries to put their voice in there, it's just going to be too slow, you know? So it's really, really important that you have the character defined as the voice actor, because we give all that to the animators, and then they take that and run.
Muito bacana, né? E você também pode ser um voice actor. O Guia do Ator, em parceria com a atriz e diretora de casting em voz original Melissa Garcia, vai ministrar workshops nesse semestre aqui em São Paulo. Para maiores informações, acesse o nosso site. E no próximo programa, não percam uma edição especial de número 50 da TV Guia do Ator. Nós separamos os melhores momentos dessas 50 edições num programa especial para você. Até mais!